Greetings and salutations, welcome to this new video by myself, Big CQ. This is a video about how to make AppleJack. Now, I've done an AppleJack video previously, but it was only going up to 24% alcohol. This one is going to be seriously stronger than that. At the end of this video, there'll be a question and answer regarding various things I got asked about the last AppleJack video. What about methanol? Is it safe to drink? What temperature do you freeze at, and all that kind of stuff. So, stay tuned. As opposed to the last video, where I started off with some cider I had already brewed, in this video I thought I'd go from scratch. So, we're going to be brewing up a cider initially, using apple juice from concentrate. Nothing fancy, cheapest you can find, and granulated sugar or dextrose if you prefer, or whatever fermentable sugar you would like to put in. So for this batch, I'm going to be using a bucket, and I've put 10 litres of apple juice into here. I'm looking to get approximately 3 litres of AppleJack at the end of the process. So I'm thinking there's going to be about 1 litre of trub left in here once it's fermented, because I want it to get really clear. I'm going to use a finings on the final fermented cider and clear down everything out of there. Once I've done that, I'll move it to a secondary, and I'll put in some potassium sorbate and sodium metabisulfate just to inhibit the yeast, make sure there's no more fermentation, and then it'll be time to freeze it. But this is the first stage, so let's get on with it. So here we've got, as I say, my 10 litres of juice. I'm going to start off with 1 kilo of sugar. I'm thinking about putting 2 kilos in because I want to really max out the alcohol. 1 kilo in. I'm thinking that with the yeast that I'm using, which is a super wine yeast compound, Young's wine yeast super compound. I'll see if I can find a picture of it and I'll flash it up now. Because I used the sachet and I threw it in the bin. And I've done a starter. Here it is here. You see all the yeast growing at the bottom there. It's currently fermenting in earnest. Right, so I'm going to just mix this up and get this all dissolved in. I'll be back in a second. Right, all the sugar is mixed in now. Whoa. One of my hot ciders. Another video of mine. Check out if you haven't seen it. So the sugar is now mixed in. 3 kilos of sugar and 10 litres of apple juice. That's a dense liquid. Dense. The OG is 1140. I've put in a final gravity of 1, just because, you know, I'm hoping it gets down that far, to get an idea of what the percentage alcohol may be. 18.6% if we get down to 1000, the same gravity as water. I also put in yeast nutrient. Now, this is meant to be 1 level teaspoon per gallon of whatever you're fermenting, cider or wine, etc. I'm doing about 2 gallons, so I should have put in 2 of these. But the density of this liquid being as it is, I put in 6 teaspoons of this because I don't want my yeast to have any problems. I want them to be nice and happy in there. So now that we're at this stage, it's now time to put the yeast in. Pretty basic so far, isn't it? I mean, we just poured apple juice into a bucket, put some sugar in it, give it a good stir. Now when I say a good stir, I mean churn this bad boy. I mean churn the shit out of it, because you want oxygen in here. Obviously, after fermentation, you don't want oxygen in it. But before fermentation, you want oxygen in this. The more the better, because the yeast is going to need that along with the yeast nutrient and the sugars to chow down, baby, and make you some alcohol. Yeast starter. Let's do this. Swirl, baby, swirl, baby. Bentonite, don't need all that. Yeast's in, let's give it a stir. A gentle agitation, if you will. There we go. There go, my yeasty friends. Now this needs to ferment. We'll come back to it a couple of days later maybe. Now 72 hours later. Let's have a look and see how our AppleJack is progressing. As you can see, it's relatively high on the temperature scale. It is next to a radiator. I want the yeast to make sure and have a good fermentation. As you can see here, there's the top of the cider. This is foam. I don't know if you can make it out on the camera, but the foam goes up to about there. Let's have a look inside. Just crack the lid on this and look inside. So there we go. It's fermenting away very vigorously. You can hear that? Excellente. Right, we'll come back to that when it's done. So it's now been about 3 weeks. And here is the cider that I brewed to make the AppleJack. I was looking for a percentage alcohol. The target was 18.6. In actual fact, what I've achieved is still respectable, but not quite 18.6. We've got 15.6. Now, before we get to freezing this, I want to make sure that it's going to be as clear as possible. I don't want any sediment to be settling out in the final product bottles. I want it to be absolutely crystal clear. Which means that I need to fine this, and I'm going to be using a finings for that. Just a standard wine finings. Let's show you that just now. Right, so here it is. It's simple stuff. It's this is called chitazan, and this is called kisel or silicic acid. And all you do is you chop this corner off and you pour in that little pack. Give it a stir. You wait for about an hour, then you do the same with this one. Give it a stir. This one, after you've put this in, you leave it for 24 hours to clear down. So, let's rack this into a secondary to make sure we get as much of the sediment from the primary left in the primary. Once it's in secondary, then we're going to fine it. Right, it's racked into this secondary. So, we're not going to fanny around here, we're going to put in the first part of the finings. Silicic acid or kisel sol. Chuck that in. Give it a gentle stir around. Need to wait for an hour now before the second part goes in. The product has now been fined. So I used both of the sections of that finings, the chitazan and the kisel sol. I didn't show you the chitazan because hey, it's just me pouring stuff into a bucket, okay? Now, this is what I've been left with. So let's have a quick look inside the bucket. Okay, so there we go. So as you can see, it is clear, and look, there is the sediment at the bottom. So it is clear, but there are one or two little bits. There's a little bit of foam on the top. It's not as clear as I would like it to be, so I'm going to double fine it. But first of all, I have to rack it again. Good morning. Okay, so I've now double fined this. I didn't show you the process, sorry. It's just pouring stuff into a bucket and stirring and waiting, so hey, just take my word for it, it's double fined. Let's have a look now and see what it looks like. Right, so there it is. Now it's not perfect, but it is quite clear underneath the foamy part on the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and bottle that now into 2 litre bottles, so let's get that done. Here's my bottles. So they've been in the freezer for 48 hours now. They've been at minus 25 degrees Celsius. The reason it took so long, and the reason I had to pump the temperature right down to minus 25 is because of the high alcohol content of the cider that went in the first place, being 15.6% ABV. Now, I'm going to put them into these 2 sterilised buckets, and we're going to drain off the jack. There we are. All I have to do now is wait. Usually about an hour, but we'll see. Maybe a little longer. Right, it's been about an hour and I've had a good squeeze of my bottles just to assist the drainage. So we're getting drainage of the jack. Now, because this is extremely cold, look at this. See that? You can actually see that's where the bucket was sitting previously. And it's so cold that it's actually frozen the water that was underneath it and the logo of the bucket manufacturer into the ice. It's so cold when you're doing this, I recommend using a glove. So here we are at the end of the video. The product has now been removed from the freezer. It's been drained off, as you've seen, and it is now sitting in some bottles. So, how many bottles did I get? What did I end up with? Well, I got 3 litres in total. So let's have a look. Got this, that's an old mead bottle, 750ml. That's a whiskey bottle, 750. It's an old port bottle, 500ml. And then I've got 2 plastic ones here, because I ran out of decent looking bottles. So we started out with 10 litres, and I've ended up with 3 litres, precisely, of AppleJack. Now, I'm not a mathematician, I don't claim to be, I'm not a chemist or any kind of expert, but I'm a relatively experienced home brewer. By my reckoning, because I have reduced the amount of liquid by 2/3, then I have tripled the strength. Ballpark. It's all approximate. I don't know precisely how strong it is. But it's going to be roughly 3 times as strong as it started out. It started out at 15.6% ABV. So, by my reckoning, it's going to be around about 46% alcohol. Roughly. So that's not bad, eh? Let's try some. Now I've just taken it out of the fridge, so it's still cold. It's got a very pungent, appley aroma to it, and a very alcoholic aroma to it as well. Cheers! That's very nice. It's very appley. It is sweet because even though I used a super wine yeast compound, it didn't ferment to dryness. So it's quite it's quite a kind of liqueur-y flavour to it. It's concentrated the flavours, the remaining residual sugars, and also the alcohol. Lovely. Okay, now, this is my second AppleJack video. The first AppleJack video that I did, I got a lot of great feedback on, but there was also a lot of questions. So, I thought I would spend some time and answer some of the most frequently asked questions. Number 1 on the list is, what about methanol? Okay, now, when you ferment anything, and I'm just going to explain this as if you don't know. If you know, then I'm sorry, but some people don't know, so I'm just going to say. When you ferment anything, you get a number of different types of alcohols inside your brew, whatever it happens to be. You get methanol, that's the stuff we don't want. You get ethanol, that's the stuff we do want. And you get something called, you also get something called fusel alcohols, which is a combination of different other alcohols. Sometimes also called fusel oils. Distillers, when they're making spirits, like a whiskey distillery, will take the base product and they'll boil it in a copper kettle. And they're looking to separate the methanol, the ethanol, and the fusel alcohols. And if you ever go on a whiskey distillery tour, you'll notice that they talk about they want to get the heart of the whiskey. Just they're dumbing it down for tourists. But that's what it is, it's ethanol they want. Now, this contains methanol, it contains ethanol, and it contains fusel alcohols. But the cider that you brewed in the first place contained exactly the same. So, if I drink a litre of this cider before I concentrated it, then I'm drinking X amount of methanol, ethanol, and fusel alcohols. If I take that litre and freeze concentrate it down to approximately 333 millilitres of AppleJack, I'm concentrating it, but the quantities of those three compounds are exactly the same as if I drank a litre of cider. It's also important to differentiate between distillation and concentration. This isn't distillation. Distillation, if you look up the definition of distillation on Wikipedia, etc., involves boiling. We're not boiling anything, we're simply concentrating. Sometimes this is referred to as freeze distillation, but that's not an accurate term as such. It's called fractional freezing or freeze concentration. This may not be legal in your particular locale. Please check local laws. I don't want anyone breaking any laws. Please check local laws to see whether you're able to do this at home in your country. If you're from the UK like me, then this is not illegal, contrary to the belief of many people out there. In various homebrew forums, etc., people think this is distillation and illegal, but it's not. Now, the prime example for this is there's a company called Brewdog in Scotland, a brewery, and they produce very high ABV beers as standard, but they also do freeze concentrated beers. Obviously in this case we've used cider to make AppleJack. What Brewdog do is they take exactly the same process except they apply it to beer. Now I've visited Brewdog, I've spoken to their head brewer, and they don't have any special licenses for distilling or otherwise. Obviously the beers they produce from freeze concentration are very high ABV, and the relevant amount of duty has to be paid on those high strength beers. Other than that, they don't have a license to distill because they aren't distilling, they're just concentrating. They've also had their beers tested for methanol. For instance, they do one called Sink the Bismarck, which is 61% alcohol. It's arrived at by a process of freeze concentration where they will freeze it multiple times over. In this case, I've only done this once. They're going to get theirs multiple times over, and they've had their beers tested, and there are not harmful levels of methanol in their beers, or they wouldn't sell them commercially both in the UK and worldwide. Here's a short clip of me with the head brewer of Brewdog in Fraserburgh, Scotland, tasting the beers directly from the freezers. Welcome to Homebrew with Big Q. We're here at the Brewdog Brewery in Fraserburgh, Scotland. It's in Aberdeenshire, and we're going to go in now and have a look around the brewery and speak to the head brewer, Stuart Bowman. Let's get it done. I'm here with the head brewer, this is Stuart. Say hello. Hello. We're going to go for a tour of the brewery and see what they get up to. Oh ho ho! We're busy. Oh yes.
Yeah. So this is these are the freezer units. Be careful if you're touching any metal. Tongue on flagpole situation. And somebody's got ice cream.
Classic. They're making ice cream here. So yeah. This is TNP.
This is TNP.
Tactical Nuclear Penguin. So that's 32% alcohol. Or it's on its way to getting there.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite good.
I'm gonna try a very small amount of this. Oh man, the aromas are so concentrated.
Yeah. That's only a second freeze.
So what percentage do you think it would be?
It would only be likely to have mid-20s.
Right.
Oh, that's delicious. So this is Tactical Nuclear Penguin. It's absolutely delicious. We've just taken it straight out of the freezer unit there. I can't drink any more of this though, I've got to try it. So very small.
We'll go to Tesco, get a couple of bottles.
Yeah, I was going to say we got some sample bottles inside.
They don't sell it in Tesco. So there you go. That's myself and my brother and Stuart Bowman, the head Brewdog brewer, tasting the beers directly from the freezers. No problems. Okay, so that's how to make AppleJack, up to 46% strength. Hope you enjoyed the video. Check out all my other videos on my channel, ciq.com, for some great home brewing related stuff. Cheers. Tasty.